This is the story of Elon Musk, the man behind SpaceX, Tesla, and X, whose fortune sits around $725 billion as of August 2026. You're about to see how he built his companies, the records they broke, the details most people never hear, and the goals he still hasn't reached. A run that stretches from a $500 video game sale to a $1.77 trillion IPO, with two near bankruptcies in the same week along the way. Everything starts with a 12-year-old writing code. Back in 1983, Musk taught himself programming and built a space shooter called Blaster, then sold it to a South African computer magazine for $500, source code and all. A kid selling a space game for pocket money would spend the rest of his life scaling up that exact transaction. The road to his first fortune crossed 3 continents. Born in Pretoria, South Africa on June 28, 1971, Musk left home for Canada and put in 2 years at Queen's University in Ontario before transferring to the University of Pennsylvania in 1992, where he graduated holding degrees in 2 subjects, economics and physics. Remember that pairing because his whole career runs on those 2 rails, money and hard science. Then came 1995 and the call that shaped everything after. 2 days into a Stanford PhD program in applied physics, he walked away, convinced the internet mattered more than anything he'd study in a lab. Twice in a row, the bet paid. Zip2, the online business directory company he co-founded that same year, sold to Compaq in 1999 for $307 million, a 9-figure exit just 4 years after founding, and he poured his share straight into a payment startup called X.com. A merger in 2000 with a rival founded by Peter Thiel produced the company renamed PayPal, and eBay bought it in 2002. Before turning 31, Musk had cashed out of 2 companies, and he immediately put the entire fortune back on the table. SpaceX arrived in 2002 with a mission statement people openly laughed at, making humanity multiplanetary, and the early years earned the laughter. Rocket after rocket failed. Then on September 28, 2008, Falcon 1 reached orbit, and no privately developed liquid fuel rocket had ever done that before. Now the chapter most people have never heard. December 2008 found Tesla and SpaceX days from bankruptcy at the same time, with Musk's last PayPal dollars already sunk into Tesla. Salvation came twice in 48 hours. NASA handed SpaceX a $1.6 billion space station resupply contract on December 23rd. And on Christmas Eve at 6 p.m., in the final hour of the final possible day, Tesla's financing round closed. 2 more days and payroll would have bounced. Musk has called 2008 the worst year of his life, which seems fair for a man who nearly lost both companies inside 1 week. Now run the math on how that bet aged, because Tesla's $1.5 trillion market cap and SpaceX's $1.77 trillion IPO valuation mean the 2 near corpses of December 2008 came to be worth more than $3 trillion combined. Tesla became the company that made electric cars something people actually wanted. Musk had joined as an investor in 2004, took the CEO job in 2008, and delivery of the first Roadster came that same year, with the very first production unit going to Musk himself. Tesla hit the Nasdaq on June 29, 2010 at just $17 per share, and anyone who bought that day and refused to sell was sitting on an almost 300-fold gain by 2025. June 2012 brought the Model S out of the Fremont factory, and today the business carries a market cap near $1.5 trillion. April 2026 saw the first Cybercab pilots, a robotaxi with no steering wheel at all, while the Optimus Gen 3 humanoid robot moves toward mass production. Those 2 products, driverless cabs and humanoid labor, are the new pillars, holding up that $1.5 trillion valuation, arguably more than the cars themselves. Meanwhile, the rocket company kept stacking firsts. Dragon docked with the International Space Station in 2012, the first commercial spacecraft to manage it. December 21, 2015 changed the economics of space forever, when a Falcon 9 booster came back from an orbital launch and landed standing up, proof that rockets could be reused instead of thrown away. February 6, 2018 produced the strangest flex in aerospace history. Falcon Heavy, the most powerful rocket SpaceX had yet built, needed a dummy payload for its maiden flight from Kennedy Space Center's Pad 39A, since Musk himself put the odds of success at 50-50, and nobody risks a real satellite on a coin flip. His solution was to launch his own cherry red Tesla Roadster with a spacesuited mannequin named Starman buckled into the driver's seat. The rocket flew perfectly, and the car became the first production automobile in space, circling the sun on an elliptical path that swings out beyond Mars at its farthest point. A fan site called whereisroadster.com tracks it to this day. One marketing stunt used two of his companies and left a permanent object in the solar system. May 30th, 2020 brought the biggest, first of all, when the Demo 2 mission's Crew Dragon carried NASA astronauts to the station and made SpaceX the first private company in history to put humans in orbit. Starlink, the satellite internet arm, pulled in $11.4 billion of revenue in 2025, with $4.4 billion in operating income, making it the profit engine that funds everything else. Recent years rebuilt the whole empire. Twitter cost him $44 billion in October 2022, and he remade it as X, bolting on X Money in early 2026, a payment system chasing global money flows. Notice the loop closing there, because X.com was the name he gave his payment startup back in 1999. And 27 years later, the brand finally does what he imagined the first time. His AI company, XAI, whose Grok models compete with ChatGPT, Gemini and Claude, merged with SpaceX on February 2, 2026 at a $1.25 trillion valuation, stitching rockets, satellite internet and frontier AI onto a single balance sheet, half of it profitable space infrastructure and half of it a money-burning AI lab. 4 months later, on June 12th, the combined company hit the Nasdaq as SPCX in the largest IPO ever recorded, priced at a $1.77 trillion valuation and raising $75 billion. Its first earnings report landed on August 4, 2026, showing $7.8 billion in quarterly revenue, up 92%, with Starlink growing 66% and the AI segment surging roughly 250%. The market's honeymoon with that stock burned hot and short, and the ride tells you something about owning a Musk company. From the offering price of $135, shares opened at $150, touched $168.75, and closed day one at $161.11 for a 19% pop, then kept sprinting to a peak of $225.64. Gravity arrived on schedule. Early August found the stock near $114, below what IPO buyers paid, weighed down by the costs of the AI build-out, and by a lockup opening August 6th that frees insider shares worth around $123 billion. The business beat expectations in its first report, and the stock fell anyway, which longtime Tesla shareholders would recognize as a normal Tuesday. A few details even fans tend to miss. OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, counts Musk as a 2015 co-founder, which means he helped start the company his own AI now battles. Neuralink, his brain-computer interface venture, has grown its human trials to 21 participants and carries a valuation near $18 billion. Time magazine crowned him Person of the Year in 2021 for aspiring, in the magazine's framing, to save this planet while lining up a second one for humanity. Bloomberg clocked his peak wealth at $844 billion in February 2026, and the number swings hard, sitting roughly $118 billion below that peak by early August. About 2/3 of the total rides on SpaceX, and the arithmetic there is striking, because the rocket company people once laughed at is now worth more to him than Tesla. So here's what's left on the list. The $75 billion raised in the IPO points straight at the unfinished business, pushing Starlink to 12,000 satellites, getting Starship fully operational with lunar landings and Mars missions, and building orbital refueling depots. Starship crossed from experimental to increasingly operational this year, flying real missions with real payloads, and Flight 13 lifted off in July 2026. Deeper in the valuation sits a bet most people haven't even priced: orbital data centers, meaning server farms in space, listed among the speculative ambitions baked into what investors pay for SPCX today. Down on Earth, the goals are cybercabs at scale, Optimus on production lines, X-Money moving global payments, and Neuralink in more patience. One ambition has stayed fixed since 2002, and that's a self-sustaining city on Mars, with the rockets built to get there and the Starlink profits lined up to pay for the trip. That's the scoreboard so far. A $500 video game, 2 internet fortunes, the first private rocket to orbit, the first booster to land itself, the first private crewed spaceflight, a sports car looping the sun, a Person of the Year cover, the company that dragged the entire auto industry electric, and the biggest IPO in history. Underneath all of it runs one pattern hiding in plain sight, which is that each fortune became the fuel for the next and riskier one. Zip2 money built X.com, PayPal money built SpaceX and kept Tesla alive through that Christmas Eve in 2008, and Starlink profits now bankroll the Mars program. Risk is the through line, because twice he pushed everything in and came within days of losing it all, and the pattern says he'd do it again. What remains open, Mars above everything, is the part history will actually grade him on.